It's For the People with Judge Herb Dodell.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I was trying to think of a subject matter to talk about today, and I just couldn't ignore what happened over the weekend. It's not only what happened over the weekend. This has been going on, whether it's a school or it's a church or it's a mosque or it's a synagogue. It's endemic of what's going on right now in our world. If somebody had said to me 5 years ago, could what happened in Germany happen in America? I'd say absolutely not a chance in the world of it ever happening here. But, you know, the answer to that would be different today. It is happening here. And it's happening here because the rhetoric has gotten to the point where it's so volatile and it's so hateful that people are jumping on it. It's no longer unacceptable to be a hate monger. And it doesn't stop only at the top. It's everywhere. It's the people that were marching in Charlottesville and screaming the Jews are not going to get my job, or body slamming some congressional candidate, some reporter, and blaming it on the news. We need to do something about this, but it creates a lot of legal issues. Now, this show, as I've mentioned many, many times before, is not meant to be political, because I'm not political. I'm neither a Democrat or a Republican. I pretty much follow the issues and the various people, and that's what I do when I vote. But not everybody thinks that way. People are getting aligned with issues and organizations that are not sponsoring good things. You know, no matter what religion you may be, they're all the same in preaching the basic tenet, which is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And that's not what's going on right now. So I went back and I listened to the show we did with Lee Baca and Bob Lindsay back in March.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, you know what? Maybe we should revisit some of the things that we talked about then, because they're now very much more current. And we talked about gun control. I don't want to use the word gun control because I'm a believer in the Second Amendment, and I think everybody should have a right to have a weapon of their choice, even if it's really not necessary to go out and use it for hunting. You know, I told the story. I had a restraining order case. A guy came in and I found that he was really a threat. And I issued the restraining order. And I said, by the way, do you have a gun? And he said, yes, I do. I hunt. I said, well, I'm taking the gun away. Not me. The system is basically taking the gun away.
They have to, right?
Within 24 hours, they have to turn it over to law enforcement or sell it to a licensed gun dealer.
Right.
And within 48 hours, they're supposed to notify the court that they've complied. I got to tell you, I've heard hundreds, probably more than hundreds, restraining order cases, even though I only granted about 5%, according to my judicial assistant. Those that I granted all had the same condition of turning over the guns. I never saw a piece of paper from any of these respondents saying that they complied with the terms of the restraining order. And it really was not the court's role to deal with it. We issue the orders. An order is an instruction to law enforcement.
So what, it kicks back down to the Sheriff's Department, or LAPD, or what?
And remember when I was talking to Baca and Lindsay, they said they were just understaffed.
Right.
They couldn't follow up.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we should take a harder look at that. And we're going to take a much harder look at gun violence today. And if anybody's interested, the show was on March the 5th. And Lee Baca was here in the studio.
Yeah.
I have been proposing, mainly to very positive responses, but nobody does anything.
Of course.
And I told the story, and my fraternity brother, who's a U.S. Senator, I was in Washington, and I went in to talk to him about it. And he said, Herb, be realistic. Nobody's passing any kind of legislation that the NRA is not going to approve. You're wasting your time, especially given the composition of the government at the time. There's no chance you're going to get this anywhere. I went to see the city attorney here in Los Angeles. I met with a couple of their people. Great idea, which I'm going to discuss in a minute. Great idea. Where did it go? Nowhere. No matter who I've talked to about this, it's gone nowhere.
Because of the money involved.
Well, I think
It's a payoff.
There's a mindset, but maybe, just maybe, because I'm a firm believer that things happen for a reason. Nothing happens by accident.
Let me ask you a question, Judge. How many of these have to happen before something gets done? I mean, does Congress have to get shot up next? I mean, does the Senate or the House of Representatives or something like that have to get shot up and have 20 of their members killed before they pass a law? I mean, it's okay for them to say, oh, well, we're for the Second Amendment. But, the bottom line is wait until it happens to them or happens to one of their family members.
Well, they actually did.
It's really disgusting.
Somebody did go after Scalise, who's a Republican.
I know. They did. They went after him. They went after the Republicans.
Personally, I hate to think in pessimistic terms because I'm not a pessimist. And I'm always looking for the silver lining in the cloud. Mm-hmm. Always.
Yeah.
I'm a kind of glasses half full guy.
You are.
And I'm optimistic about it. But I think that we're heading in a spiral that's not looking very good.
Yeah, I don't.
And hate does nobody any good. Believe it or not, you think about it logically. When you're angry at somebody, who's feeling it? You are.
Exactly.
The other person doesn't necessarily have to even feel it or even know that you hate them.
By the way, it gives them power whether they know it or not. When you hate somebody or you dislike certain people or whatever, it gives them power. And then this is what's going on. See, you're giving them power by feeling the hate, and then these people are acting out from hatred and going out and blowing people away.
Well,
because they're frustrated or they're losers or they have no life or whatever the reason, mentally disturbed, whatever it is.
I started getting into this more in depth after Parkland. That was a school. I mean, those people were not hurting anybody. Those are kids.
Yeah.
This is a little different.
What's the synagogue doing?
Well, no, that's a little. Now it's gotten a lot more personal.
I mean, come on.
These were people who were just going there to worship on the Sabbath and they weren't really doing any damage to anybody.
They're doing nothing.
But this was about religion, and now that it's turned to religion also, and I'm not ignoring the fact that there was an attack on a black church.
Remember the church?
Not too bad. And I think 8 people were killed in that one.
For praying.
Yeah,
again, praying.
So it's not only about the Jews, but the fact of the matter is, we need to adjust this, or we're going to head in a spiral that nobody wants to go with.
How do you do that?
Well, we started. Let me go back and tell you what the idea was, and it's in my book. By the way, I did a slight revision in the book, and I added this whole section on gun violence. And the suggestion that I made to Ben and to everybody else is that we set up a national database of all restraining orders, because every restraining order that I know of has a condition that guns have to be turned over. They all do it. It's on the form. We never vary from that. And like the guy that told me he was a hunter, I said, you know what? You can hunt, but go buy a bow and arrow. You're not going to be doing it with a gun.
Slingshot.
And you change your name to David and go after the Bigfoot.
Exactly.
You want to do that. But the fact of the matter is, if you set up a national database, now not only does law enforcement know about it, but all of these private dealers know about it. And taking out the exceptions for the trade shows, gun shows, and things like that, and assuming that you tighten that up somewhat, if a gun dealer is about to sell a gun or even a substantial amount of ammunition, they got to check the database. And if that person's name is on the database, 2 things have to happen. 1, no sale. But 2, a report to law enforcement. You say, well, why would you report that? Because that's a violation of a court order. That's a crime. And we're not really capable. Well, I guess we're capable. But we don't do it. I'll tell you what will happen next right after the break.
Yeah, I'd like to know why that hasn't been implemented.
I'll tell you after the break.
Well, because there's too much money involved. They're getting paid off. All right, it is. Don't get me started on that. I'm really upset. All right, it is For the People with Judge Herb Dodell. Get his book, From the Trench to the Bench. And also check out his YouTube videos on YouTube, Judge Herb Dodell. We'll be back after this, right?
Yes, we will.
Sure we will.
1050 AM, KCAA.
Herb Dodell is a lawyer and a judge for the people. Having served as a Superior Court judge, presiding over more than 9,000 cases, he has witnessed firsthand how complicated and corrupt the legal system can be. His goal is to show how things really work in the legal system so that people can navigate the legal system in the best way for them. Many people often feel marginalized by the legal system and are uninformed about how to proceed when unfortunate circumstances arise in their life. Judge Herb will pull back the curtain, lift the veil, so people can truly understand their rights, have access to top legal personnel that they can trust, and have knowledge about how things work so they can make better choices. Judge Herb isn't just knowledgeable. His integrity and spiritual values are truly what make him different. He cares about democratizing access and information for all and desires to turn on the light so the people, you, can benefit. For more information, email the judge at askjudgeherb@gmail.com. That's askjudgeherb@gmail.com.
Okay, we're back. So let's go back with the plan. When this sale is attempted and law enforcement is informed, they now have somebody on the radar. And given what we have now in terms of social media and accessibility of information, these people usually leave a long trail of not so nice things. In fact, if you look at the social media from most of these mass killers, you're going to find that they've been saying a lot of nasty things for a long time. And so even if it does at some point infringe on our rights of individuality, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, the fact of the matter is you have to weigh the benefit to the public versus the detriment to the public. It's all about a balancing act. When we do restraining order cases, it's all about a balance. We balanced it out a little bit differently here in California because the burden of proof is so much higher. Normally, and in fact in domestic violation cases, the burden of proof is preponderance of the evidence, meaning more likely than not, 51% if you want. But in restraining order cases, in general restraining order cases under California Section 527.6, it basically talks about the need to prove it by clear and convincing evidence, which is a much, much higher burden. It's somewhere between preponderance of the evidence and beyond a reasonable doubt. But the question always has been, and it's been going on for many, many, many years, is how far can you go with restraint? It's like censorship. It's the same thing. People are saying some horrible things out there right now. Can you stop them? What's the answer to that? Can you stop them from saying terrible things?
I don't, yeah.
Sometimes you can. So,
I don't know.
But sometimes you can.
Yeah, well, it depends where it's at, I guess, and how it's
well,
stated.
if it's threatening, and if it's you can talk about the use of violence to change the political world. That's permissible discourse. That's not restrainable. It's when it crosses the line, and this guy in Pittsburgh crossed the line. If you looked at his social media, he was long past just commenting about the system or anything else. This was threatening from day one. And not that they're going to camp out on his front door and wait to see if he's going to do something, but at least you have an idea that there's somebody out there with an identification that might be a real risk.
You know what? I want to ask a question here. Why doesn't law enforcement, or why doesn't Congress, like you're talking about Congress passing this law about a database, which I think is fantastic. I think it's not infringing on anybody's rights. It's actually helping us.
It's easily done too, by the way.
And it's easily done, and they're not going to do that because they're getting paid off. The Congress is getting paid off. I just don't get this. That why doesn't like these social media networks like Facebook, like Twitter, like this Gab? I've never even heard of this Gab that this guy was spewing all his hatred on. Why can't they monitor it, or why don't they monitor it Okay, because they're making billions of dollars on these. Look at Zuckerberg and all these other cats making Twitter guy and all these cats making Instagram, making millions and millions, becoming millionaires, billionaires. Why can't they invest and monitor this garbage and this hatred and inform an agency, whether it's the FBI, the DOJ, local law enforcement, something? There's got to be some way to monitor this hatred, because people are spewing hatred all over social media and nothing's being done about it.
Well, interestingly enough, after World War II, many of the countries in Western Europe passed legislation prohibiting hate content. In other words, if you were living in Germany, you couldn't in any way get on any social media, even though nobody was thinking of social media those days. You can't do that. That's a crime.
Right.
It's a crime to do that. Does that really infringe on somebody's right to free speech? It goes back to that very famous case, Neer versus Minnesota, which was decided by Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes, one of the great jurists of our time, and said, free speech does not give you the right to yell fire in a crowded movie theater. I mean, there's a limit, and that's what the court does. That's the second part of the plan. People who have a restraining order against them have it because some judge someplace thought they were a risk or a threat, or there was a reason to do it. That's what restraint is all about. You cannot do this. If you do, people always ask me, what happens if you violate a restraining order? Well, two possibilities. One, you get prosecuted as a regular criminal. Most of the time it's a misdemeanor, which means a year or less in the county jail. Sometimes it's so egregious that it rises to the level of being a felony, which is state prison for more than a year. So there's a number of options for that. But we, as impartial, educated people, public servants, really, we're just looking to protect the public. And so when you have somebody in front of you that is a real clear and present danger, you have an obligation to try to stop them from doing something. And once you do that, either they get arrested if they violate it, or they can be dragged back into the court, same court where the order was issued, because we maintain jurisdiction over the cases that we decide. They end up being held in contempt. Contempt means you go to jail. And we need to enforce this a lot stronger than we've been doing in the past. Because you know what Baca said, we don't have the manpower, we don't have the ability, the financial wherewithal to pursue all of these, especially civil ones. See, a restraining order is quasi-criminal. It's more civil than it is criminal, although the burden of proof is higher than a civil case. It's more civil in the sense that motions and things are done in the court system. Criminal is a lot more involved because the burden of proof is beyond a reasonable doubt. So it's a different environment, but it's still the balance. We can tell without being psychiatrists or psychologists or even social workers, when you have people sitting in front of you and you hear what they have to say, you have a visceral gut feeling that this is a person that shouldn't be walking around with a gun. I mean, I've told the story probably half a dozen times on many shows. The one case where I granted a restraining order because the lady brought in a phone and she showed me that there was somebody who was calling her, was sitting on the floor with a beer bottle in one hand and a gun in the other with a caption underneath. I granted that one. That's what's going on out there. Well, and unless we deal with each other in a more spiritual way, I don't want to get into doing a whole preaching thing, but
you should.
We have to stop. We have to stop hating people, and we have to start recognizing the one positive thing out of this. If you could say it's even positive, nothing's positive.
Not in this case.
Look at all the attention it's getting.
Well, they did that in Parkland too. I mean, they did that with the Pulse nightclub. It gets attention. And guess what? In 2 weeks, it's going to be something else.
That's what's called a cycle, isn't it?
Well, then
that's exactly right.
So it doesn't really matter, Judge. This doesn't. Honestly, all these lives are being lost from these idiots that are going out and mass murdering people. I mean, it's on the front page for a week or 10 days, and then next week it's going to be the election. So all this is going to be shoved aside. It never ends. I mean, this stuff, this is really sickening in our society, where there are people out there with so much hatred for a certain type of race, religion, kids getting killed, that there's some sort of sickness going on here.
Well, it's interesting. I just heard this afternoon that one of the mosques in Pittsburgh is sending 20 of their parishioners to the synagogue on Saturday. It is certainly getting a lot of attention, and there are a lot of very wonderful people out there who are responding in a positive way, and it's gotten a lot of attention. Maybe, just maybe, it'll make some difference. Part of the problem is that our government now is, for all practical purposes, sponsoring this kind of thing.
Yeah.
They're not sponsoring mass murderers, of course, but they're setting a tone for people's conduct toward other people.
Yeah.
That's what's tribalized, and that's what made it so conflicting among peoples. And maybe it made a difference because it was a Saturday in a synagogue, and it was only about religion. See, this wasn't about a political belief. It wasn't about anything. It was about, he hated those people. He was going to.
He hates Jews. He hated Jews.
He said all they have to. As he said as he was leaving, from what I heard, he said all these Jews must die.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing to discuss after that. I mean, this is not a guy you could talk down in a hostage situation. This was a guy hell bent on killing as many people as he could. And unless we stop thinking that way, all of us, whenever we have these negative thoughts about others, you got to stop and say, what are we supposed to do spiritually? What are we supposed to do? We're supposed to love each other, and you're supposed to keep in mind what other people's needs are, not to go out and do the things that some of these characters are doing. And we're not doing much to stop it. So the plan that I had suggested, and I'm still pushing, is to allow a judge to make a decision, which is what we do anyway, make a decision as to somebody being restrained, and it can be done by the cities, by the way. I think I mentioned it before, just so in case people have forgotten that. I've granted a number of restraining orders to the city of Los Angeles. In fact, one of the opinions from the Court of Appeals, somebody appealed me. I had granted a restraining order against him, and he took it up on appeal, and the Court of Appeals affirmed my decision and wrote an opinion, which is what they do. And I attached a copy of the opinion to the book. It's actually in there. It's called Garber, not Garver. Garber. People.
Thanks for clearing that up.
People against Garber. And the fact of the matter is that once we do something like that, we can do it for the benefit of the public. Because if somebody's messing up, making a lot of noise and disrupting things, we call them 415, disturbing the peace, disorderly conduct, and things like that, you can get a restraining order. Just like an employer can get a restraining order against a former employee. Doesn't even have to be a former employee. Anybody who's threatening employees can be restrained. We're not saying put them in handcuffs and throw them in jail. What we're saying is you can't do it again. Because one of the hallmarks of restraining order cases is it has to be a continuing course of conduct. I told a story. Some guy came in, he was badly beaten up by somebody, really badly beaten up, even though it was months after the event that he was in court. I mean, they had all the medical reports, hospitalization, and everything else, and he wanted a restraining order against the guy that beat him up. What do you think I did?
Well, I hope you granted it.
No, I didn't.
Why?
Because it had been 3 months since they had any contact with each other at all, and the victim, the petitioner, had an adequate remedy at law. In other words, he could have sued for assault and battery.
And he didn't.
And he could still do it.
Okay.
There's a statute of limitations runs, it's the same as the personal injury statute of limitations. And so when there's a legal remedy, then that's an option.
Okay.
But generally speaking, you got somebody who's doing it on a regular basis. We can do something to control it. We just need to take advantage of that opportunity.
All right.
So we'll talk after the break.
Yes, we will. It is for the people, Judge Herb Dodell. And if you want to ask the judge a question, ask Judge Herb at gmail.com. We'll be right back.
NBC Talk Radio, 1050 AM, KCAA.
In his book, From the Trench to the Bench, Judge Herb Dodell demystifies the legal system, including both civil and criminal, the lawyers, the judges, and the process. As a judge, former deputy district attorney, and criminal defense attorney, he knows the legal system. He has the inside information that you need to pick a lawyer, and he's here to give it to you. No matter what you're facing that makes you think you may need a lawyer, Judge Herb will shed valuable light on your situation and reveal your best options and many secrets of how the judicial system actually works. To find out more about how the legal system really works, you can get your copy of Judge Herb Dodell's eye-opening book, From the Trench to the Bench, at Amazon.com.
Okay, we're back. So, in case you're interested, restraining order court is a very interesting place. Very interesting place. That's why I wanted that assignment. And I pitched regularly for them to assign me downtown LA to the restraining order court because the cases were really very interesting and you had an opportunity to do something meaningful. But a large percentage of those cases, I refer to it as junk. The neighbors fighting over nonsense. Although I did have a case where somebody was throwing rocks at the people next door, and the people that were getting the rocks thrown at them actually picked them up and put dates on it and saved all the rocks and brought them in a bag. And that was very convincing because it showed it was a continuing course of conduct.
Oh, God.
But some of them are outrageously silly. I mean, there was a case one time with some very, very large women, a mother and two kids who were very gargantuan. And they went into school, and because there was a dress code that the kids did not want to follow, they went into the classroom, grabbed the teacher, took off all her clothes in front of the class.
Was she hot? Sorry.
Yeah, they didn't ask them to bring any pictures. But they were seeking a restraining order too, same kind of thing. That's not to say that there's no merit to those kinds of cases. Some of them do.
Did you grant that one?
Did I grant that one? I don't remember actually.
They took out the teacher's clothes?
If I thought that there was if I thought that it could happen again, then I would have.
Isn't that a criminal act? It just physically.
It's a battery.
It's a battery, right?
It's it's both an assault and a battery.
Yeah, assault and battery.
In case people are interested, in fact, I was looking at the book over the weekend, making little changes here and there, and there's a little section on the difference between assault and battery. Most people don't know that. They hear the whole thing. It's always assault and battery. Well, you can have an assault without a battery, and you can have a battery without an assault. But if you have the combination, you have an assault and battery, which, by the way, has a simple remedy. If you get beaten up, and it's a one-time event, you can, like this gentleman I was talking about, you can always sue for the assault and battery. An assault, by the way, is just the apprehension and the fear that's generated by somebody could do something to you. They point a gun at you, for example. Maybe it's made out of soap. Maybe it's just a toy gun or whatever it is. But if you are apprehensive because of it and you believe that you're in danger of some kind, that's an assault, even though nothing ever happens. And even though the party with the toy gun didn't intend to do anything other than frighten you.
Well, just like this bomber, he just went into court and said that none of those bombs were going to hurt anybody.
Is that what he said?
Yeah, he said that he didn't have any intent on hurting anybody, that the bombs were just, his way of speaking out. Yeah, that's what he said. Yeah, same thing.
How many jurors do you think will relate to that explanation?
How many Trump supporters are going to be on the jury? Honestly.
I don't think it's fair to blame Trump for
I'm not blaming him, but I'm just saying that
but he is participating in it.
Please, I mean, look at his van. Look at the guy's van. I mean, he had Trump plastered everywhere. I mean, I'm not blaming Trump on any of this stuff. I think Trump is a lightning rod He's like he's like there's charcoal out there, and he's the fluid that's sparking the flame. That's all. I'm not saying he's doing any of this, but he is like bringing these cats out of the woodwork, man.
True leadership would require a change in attitude.
Yes, if he
and recognizing that you just like you say, it's the spark plug that gets the thing going.
Yeah.
We need to change the public dialogue,
the rhetoric,
all over.
Yeah, everywhere. I mean, I'm blaming Democrats too. I mean, Democrats, Republicans, all of them. It's a cesspool of negativity we live in today. It's just all negative, and you never hear anything really positive. The positive stories get shoved under the rug.
Nobody ever did a show on good news.
Right?
They don't sell.
Do you ever hear anything? Do you ever hear at the top of unless it's like the Dodgers win the World Series, which didn't happen. I mean, there's
not this year.
Well, it's always next year. But the bottom line is that we never hear anything positive in the news, except for at the when they have it the last minute of the newscast.
Oh, they have every now and again they have a nice little story.
No, I know.
There's like the Dean's List if you listen to the radio.
Yeah,
people are doing nice things to other people.
There are.
There's a lot of good deeds that are being done every single day.
I agree.
People are out there feeding the hungry. People are out there.
I agree.
That doesn't get a big play. Some.
A little bit.
In fact, one night we were watching the news, like the 11 o'clock news, and my wife said to me, "You know what? There's nothing positive in this. All it is who got murdered, who got beat up, who got robbed. If you watch the news, other than the sports and the weather, it's all bad news.
It's all negative. It's all negative.
It's all negative. How do you think that inspires people?"
Well, I mean, it's a mindset. It's a mindset what's going on. And this, I'm not, like I said, I'm not blaming Trump, but he is sparking the flame, man. He is the lightning rod. When he comes out and says he's a nationalist, you know what? And I put it out today on my show, Control Chaos, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. A plug for myself. The bottom line is that he came out and said he was a nationalist, I believe, on Tuesday. Okay, the pipe bomb guy started sending the pipe bombs on Wednesday. That's when this whole thing started, and then this shooting on Saturday. Not saying that it was a cause of it, but it does put up a mindset to these people. It gives them the freedom to go out there and do this stuff. At least in their minds.
It almost sounds socially acceptable.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, and it's sad. I mean, it's crazy. Something's got to stop, man. This has got to stop.
Well, we need to change the paradigm. That's the bottom line.
How do you do that, Judge?
You start talking nicer to people, and you start thinking about what you can do for other people, how you can share with other people. And what you do is you attract the positive energy when you do that. We've talked about that on the show, the spiritual aspect of this. It's cause and effect. If you do the right thing and you're spending your time devoted to doing positive things for other people, you will attract the positive energy and you'll be in the right place at the right time. And it's just the opposite. If you engage in negative conduct all the time, hateful stuff, it bounces off that mirror, which is above us all, not necessarily physically, and it comes back to us in the form of chaos. Wrong place, wrong time.
Let me ask you a question here, okay? Because I see this a lot, and I'm actually dealing with this a lot. I have a very positive attitude. I help people out a lot. I'm taking care of my brother, this and that. But there's a lot of negativity that's coming my way. I'm not projecting any negativity towards anybody, but the negativity is like coming at me. How does a positive person, or what is in the spiritual realm that you're talking about, how does a positive person that does good things and does the right thing and tries to be a good person escape the negativity that people are bringing on to you, that is coming on you, and you have nothing to do with it? You're just
you do have something to do with it.
No, but you're just doing your thing. You're trying to be as positive as possible, and then this negativity flow, this energy is coming at you. How do you deflect it, or how do you fight it off? That's
well, it still comes down to what the Stones said many years ago.
You can't always get what you want.
You don't always get what you want. You get what you need. And there's a spark of light.
I need a shot of tequila from your bottle.
By the way, did you try the tequila yet? The one that I lost?
I have not tried it yet. I'm waiting for a special occasion.
Every day is a special occasion.
Well, I mean, I'm waiting. Maybe I think I'm going to crack it open on New Year's New Year's Eve. I think I'm going to crack
You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. The reason I know you're gonna love it is when we bought it, we were in I guess in Puerto Vallarta.
Thank you, Shelley.
They give you little samples. You can stand there and get yourself drunk, sampling all the different kind of tequilas.
It's like going wine tasting.
And Shelley is really she really has good taste. She knows the good stuff.
Well, she married you.
She liked it. But I was much younger looking then. Different person. But I got to tell you, I can tell in my own personality and my own things, I'm far more tolerant than I was when I was much younger. Far more tolerant.
That's good.
And far more patient, and far more recognizing that what we do makes a lasting impression. So that's why I'm doing this show. I'm not doing it to make money. I would like to, but the fact of the matter is, we need to be able to explain and share the concepts that life can be very good to you. And if something's not happening in your favor and you don't think it's a good thing, or something breaks up, or a relationship, or whatever, the financial deal, whatever it is, that's temporary.
Right.
And if you look at it as an opportunity, a lesson for something, then once you have learned the lesson, it's no longer a necessity for that negative stuff to come back at you. It's there as a message that you are the messenger. And so the bottom line really is, if you step back and take a deep breath when something negative happens to you, it may not be as negative as you think.
Right.
Because a year later, 10 years later, you say to yourself, looking at things in perspective, if that had happened, which you said you wanted at the time, your life would have changed in a dramatic way, perhaps not necessarily favorably.
So maybe take the positive out of the negative.
You have to. It's like Johnny Mercer said, I got to access to each positive, eliminate the negative, and don't mess with Mr. In Between.
Okay, I dig it.
And that's it.
All right, well, I'm not, we're trying to, a lot of people are going through a lot of stuff. It's a crazy society nowadays.
Well, now I've never seen, that I can remember, a time when it was more chaotic other than between 8 and 9 o'clock every morning on your show.
Called Controlled Chaos.
That's why it's called Controlled Chaos. But you can control the chaos.
Yes.
I couldn't control it this morning. It was a 2-hour delay to get through Malibu to get it to Santa Monica.
What?
2 hours.
What happened?
An RV got stuck.
Oh, God.
On one of the lanes and so it was 2 hours
Lord.
to get in.
I was thinking about that.
You could fume it, but there's a great point to it.
What did you do?
Could be jumping up and down and screaming and angry and all of that.
What'd you do?
What would you do? I turned around and went home.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
Once I found out this was not happening, I said, okay, this is a done deal.
I was thinking about you last week, or was it last week or a couple weeks ago when the plane landed in Agora? Remember that?
Yeah.
Right on the freeway? Because you live, I'm not telling you where but you live out that way. But,
yeah, well, you know what? We have a thing called Waze. I'm still learning how to use that thing. It's called Waze. It tells you the traffic.
Yeah.
So it tells us how you make a right-hand turn over here, you make a left-hand turn over there. So I'm listening to this thing and it says, make a right-hand turn on this one particular road. I said, that's the wrong direction. It's absolutely the wrong direction. I'm not going to pay attention to that. So I went left.
No.
I did.
You didn't get it.
I got down about a half a mile and they were all bumper to bumper. So I realized, you know what? I should have made the right and I could have taken an alternate route. So I turned around and went back and it was fine. So,
did you know about the plane landing on the freeway at the time?
I think I did.
You still did the turn.
No, but that was in the other direction. I was taking the coast highway. Sometimes the coast is clear.
It's great. It's great.
Sometimes, like this morning,
terrible.
Disaster.
Yeah, no, I dig it. I usually, whenever I have to go out to like Santa Monica or Beverly Hills or something like that, I live right off at Topanga Canyon, not too far. So I usually I never go the 405. I always take Topanga Canyon because I like going through PCH in the ocean and stuff like that. But sometimes it is a nightmare because you cannot escape that. You're stuck.
Well, the problem is to go to Santa Monica from where I'm living is there really is no alternative way except the coast.
That's it,
And you could do it the other way and go all the way around, and then you get the traffic on the freeway.
Oh, God.
But the point is, I didn't lose it. I was pissed.
You turned around and went home and chilled out.
But I made some phone calls. While I was there, captive audience.
We got to take a break. It is for the people of Judge Herb Dodell, Check out his book, From the Trench to the Bench. You're going to learn a lot by buying that. Give it to a friend. It's it's
Great
almost,
Christmas present.
That's right. Or Hanukkah.
Did
Any
you ever
holiday.
meet a lawyer that was for the people? Someone who had the best interests of the people at heart. Herb Dodell has been a lawyer for more than 50 years and has been a Superior Court judge for 9 years, having presided over more than 9,000 cases. In this show, he will reveal the secrets of how things really work in the legal system, so you can maximize your position and benefit most when you're in trouble and need someone on your side to simplify the process for you. For more information, email the judge at askjudgeherb@gmail.com. That's askjudgeherb@gmail.com.
I want to get back a little bit to city, county, state involvement, because that's how we're going to at least control some of this violence. The case that I was talking about, Garber, the fact of the matter is I had a number of cases that involved churches. The church came in and was seeking a restraining order against either a parishioner or somebody who was threatening the church. And for the most part, I granted those. Although there was one who wanted a very, very broad restraining order against everybody in the church, and I denied that one because it was not specific enough. But the fact of the matter is, municipalities, governments, and whatever, if someone appears to be a present threat to the community, that may justify a restraining order. And it's in favor of the city or this county or the state or whatever it is, but it's enforceable. And they're on the database. We need to encourage the government, for want of a better word, to be more proactive. When you got somebody saying the things that this guy was saying, you know that one day he's going to blow up somewhere and he's going to blow up somebody else at the same time. And so you have to balance between free speech, and that's a real big issue. In fact, there was a case, Brecky versus Brecky in California, where a 15-year-old was writing notes to his girlfriend, who was the same age, basically telling the girlfriend that he was going to kill her parents. And the question is whether or not there should be a restraining order. His argument was it was free speech. I can say whatever I want. Court didn't agree with him. There are times when free speech goes beyond merely informing. And again, the question deals with assembly, constitutional issues now. I did study a little constitutional law along the way. That the government needs to step in. The question is, when is that? How broad is that? That's the strict construction of the Constitution versus the liberal part of it. And the reality is that when people cross that line, there should be some mechanism, and there is a mechanism, to at least control the future conduct of that person. It was never a question of people having the right to own guns. It's only certain people shouldn't have them. And if you use a reasonable, neutral approach to determining what criteria should be applied to those people, as long as it's fair, and it's reasonable, it's not discriminatory, and there are constitutional guidelines for all of this, by the way. It's all in the Constitution. Then government is occupying the role that it was intended to occupy, which is to govern. And government governing requires involvement. And so when I was talking to Baca and Lindsay, and they were saying, well, we just don't have the money for it, that's not an excuse.
Well, I mean, they're spending money on,
changing belt buckles.
Belt buckles or.
Although I got to tell you, it was very interesting. I was coming home this morning and I pulled over the side of the road on a 2-lane road because I was on the cell phone and I knew I was coming up to a drop zone. One of those drop zones?
Yeah.
So I pulled off the side of the road so I could continue having this conversation with this person. I was on the phone with him about a half an hour. I didn't want to blow the conversation, right? So I was sitting there about 5 minutes. All of a sudden, all the sheriff cars come with their lights flashing and everything else. And I'm sitting there. I'm not going anywhere. And the guy gets out of his car. I could see him through the mirror. a sheriff, and he walks over to the door, to the window, and the window is down or whatever. He says, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah." What I told him, I said, "This is what happened over here, and I didn't want to cut the phone off and everything." He started laughing with me, and I said, "By the way, how's Captain?" And I know the watch commander there. I said, "How's his son doing?" I know he went into the Marines. These guys couldn't have been nicer to me. Could not have been more. They stopped to see if I was okay.
That's great.
So the cops are not our enemies.
No.
They're truly not our enemies. And the reality is, if we follow the law and we enforce the law, we may see a difference. But we have to change our mentality first. And when you start talking about it's okay to punch somebody in the face or body slam somebody to the ground or lock them up, that's not encouraging people to do the right thing. That's whipping them up.
Yeah,
There's got to be a change there.
Yes.
And again, I'm not a political person, but I comment on what I see. And I see this as a real impediment to the progress of peace when you talk this way.
And, the other thing is, and this has been happening over and over again with these guys, is that, it's always after the fact where they see all this information of hatred that these guys are spewing on social media. There has to be some sort of way to monitor this stuff.
Well, that's when you're talking about what they do in Europe. And maybe somebody needs to take a harder look. I'm sure they're taking a hard look at it now.
I don't know.
They need to take a harder look at what they allow to be posted. But then again, you have the argument from the liberals, and I'm certainly not on the far left either. It's free speech.
I don't care. I mean, that's ridiculous, man. That is asinine and stupid when somebody is spewing hatred against someone else or some religion or some race or whatever. And, then it's after the fact. It's always after the fact that they see this stuff on social media and nobody knows anything about it. How do they not know about this stuff? There's got to be some sort of way to monitor it.
I'm sure they do. I know they have a methodology because
of course they do.
I got involved in evaluating a situation where somebody was claiming that stuff that was on the social media was inflammatory to such a degree it should be restrained. And then you get into the free speech argument versus the restraining argument. And it's a balancing act, and every case is different. Every case is different.
Well, Congress got to pass a law. Okay,
they're not doing anything.
I know they're not, but I'm saying this is the problem with our society. They're not passing any gun laws. They're not passing any laws about this hatred on the social media networks. This is what's wrong with our society. This is why our society is going downhill. And I really believe it is. I don't
want to call it downhill.
It is.
That sounds very.
It's negative,
defeatist.
But I know it. I'm not being defeatist. I'm just saying it's happening. I'm not a defeatist. I'm a positive soul, and I'm one of God's warriors, and I'm going to fight the good fight until the day I'm not on planet Earth. But it's wearing on people that are positive and want to do the right thing and take care of people. This is ridiculous. What's going on? There has to be. Congress has to do something. We pay these guys. To do something about this stuff. This is what I'm saying.
Politics is a very nasty game. These people are all being supported. When I was saying a couple of weeks ago, when I talked about cleaning out the swamp or draining the swamp, when we were talking to Roger Stone.
Yeah.
And I said, you just changed one group for another. He said, no, you didn't. It's the same group.
It's the same swamp.
It's the same group.
It is.
They pay both people. You know how many times you hear about these big donors? They give X to the one group and they give Y to the other. The opposition gets money too.
I know the Koch brothers and the Soros brothers.
That's right.
Come on.
Koch brothers is the example I was thinking.
And
about.
Soros and George Soros. He's on the George Soros is on the liberal end, and the Koch brothers are on the conservative end, and these guys have billions of dollars, and this feed into their thoughts. They're controlling, our society.
All these tax deductible dollars?
Oh yeah, that they may. Yeah, of course they do. It's all tax deductible.
I'm not so sure. Legitimately, it's tax deductible.
Well,
I'm sure it's not. But that's not to say it doesn't go into business promotion or some category that allows you to deduct it.
Yeah, it's sad, Judge.
The fact of the matter is, we as a judiciary can do something about this. We really can. We just need the support of the public to recognize that we're out there trying to watch out for everybody else, and restraining orders are a way to do it, and we need to do more of it. And we need to do it through the government agencies and entities like the cities and the states and the counties. There was one case I had with somebody was really raising hell in the library. And I issued a restraining order to keep him out of the library.
Well, that's cool.
Because he was destroying the peace and tranquility of the people who were in the library.
Right.
And so we have an obligation as a government to protect our people. And part of it is making sure that there's a mechanism that allows for that to be done. And if we don't do anything, we have nobody to blame but ourselves.
Well, I think your idea is fantastic. Make a database with people who have restraining orders against them, who commit hara-kiri in our society. But of course, a great idea like yours isn't going to go anywhere. And you said it to you said it. You have a friend.
To Baca.
You said it to your friend who's the senator. I mean, he says it's not doing it. Nothing's going to happen.
Love the idea.
That's awesome.
Love the idea.
Right.
But the practicality of it took over, and it wasn't going to go anywhere.
Of course, because they're getting paid off, man. I'm sorry. It depends on what your definition.
It depends on what your definition of paid off is. Paid off doesn't mean somebody hands them an envelope with Franklin's in it. It means that they want to get reelected.
Exactly.
And you were talking about term limits in one of the shows recently, and I'm not sure on which side I am on that. On term limits, there's some positive side of that is that nobody can get so entrenched that they control forever. On the other hand, you kicking out some people with great quality. Like I was on the board at the university, and I termed out. I'm done because I served my time.
Exactly.
I don't want to say term.
Even Babe Ruth had
terrible.
Even Babe Ruth had to retire. Every time there's a time for everybody to retire. Tom Brady's going to have to retire. Everybody has to retire and move on to something else. We need to start doing this. We need to recycle these people because it's the same mindset. Even with the Kavanaugh hearings, some of these guys were there for the Clarence Thomas hearings. It's nothing's going to happen until we start changing things.
We have taken this show today to a different level. We change every week. That's why I try to get people to listen to the show, because one week we talk about information, one week we talk about spirituality, one week we talk about guidelines.
We talk about everything today.
We talk about political stuff. I just couldn't think of any other subject that I wanted to talk about today.
I don't blame you. It's a very emotional time in our society, and this stuff is just, it's got to stop. It's got to stop. This negativity and this hatred has to stop.
You think it's going to have any effect on the election? We're a week before. I lost a bottle of tequila the last time, so I'm not betting with you anymore.
I believe that it will have some effect, but when Trump got elected, it hit everybody like in the head. I don't know what's going to happen. It's totally like nobody knows. I really don't know, to tell you the truth. I don't have any.
You don't want no predictions?
You know what?
You want to bet me a bottle of vodka or something?
All right, yeah. Well, you want to bet? All right, sure. What do you want? You want to bet? Let's bet a bottle of wine.
Who's winning? Who's winning the House of Representatives?
I think the Democrats will get a slight narrow margin and win the House of Representatives, and I think the Senate will still stay with the Republicans.
I can't bet with you because I agree with you.
Okay, there you go. Good.
That's how I think. Unless something crazy happens in the next 8 days.
Who knows?
And that certainly could happen,
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting.
Glued to the TV.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's going to be interesting. Next Tuesday, go out there and vote, right?
Absolutely, of course. We that's one of the great gifts that we got is the ability to vote.
Absolutely.
So go out there and vote for whoever you're going to vote for, but go out and vote and exercise your free right to do that. That's a great blessing.
All right. Well, Judge, we got to go.
Okay. We'll see you soon.
All right. I'll see you whenever. I'm not sure, but
not next week.
All right. A couple weeks. All right. Listen, go get the Judge's book, From the Trench to the Bench, at Amazon, and check out his videos on YouTube. And also, if you want to ask him a question, askjudgeherb@gmail.com.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and now 102.3 FM.
Are you a small business owner?